Okay, so this is my discussion about space and how I actually secretly really like space, except that I don't care about space at all. I spent a lot of time in my 12-minute video talking about how I don't give two shits about space, basically, which isn't true because I have a lot of relatively uninformed opinions about space. So I don't think I can say that I don't care about space, but I don't know how to explain it, I guess. So I have a friend group, and they just love talking about space. They love space. They think it's super interesting, and I think it's super nerdy of them, but also really cool, and I just love them, so it's fine. And I don't care about space, it would seem, or I don't care about space in the same way at all, because I'm just like, oh god, it just, every time they talk, I'm like, all I really hear is, oh my god, space, oh my god, space, and I'm just like, I don't care. And Megan actually posted a really good video about this on Tumblr, and that was kind of what spurred this, is that I felt like I had to respond, because it was basically this robot being like, space, space, I love space, and I was just like, oh my god, this is actually what I hear when they have conversations about space. It's all I hear. I don't actually hear any, like, details about space, I just hear, like, space! So this is my attempt to respond to that and kind of explain my somewhat unusual positioning about space in my friend group. So, I originally started talking about science fiction. I'm going to talk about my childhood first and how, when I was little, and by little I mean 8, my dad and I spent a lot of time, like, maybe not a lot of time, like, I don't know, a couple of nights a week in my backyard looking at the night sky. And so I have actually, I think I have a tremendous amount of appreciation for the night sky. Like, I think it's unbelievable. And I think that it's, I find it both really mysterious and really reassuring. It's reassuring in the sense that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's always there. It's beautiful every time I look at it. Like, one of my best memories from Mexico was the first night we were out turtle monitoring, and I mean, I was literally freezing my ass off, and in this tiny boat, and there's seaweed everywhere, and there's a turtle there, and I'm, like, trying to stay awake, and it's, like, 2 in the morning, which, for most of you who know me, that's, like, way past bedtime, and, Amber and I are listening to music, and there's not a lot of light pollution, because it's, you know, this really remote place in Mexico, and so I was just sitting up there, like, looking at the night sky, and I was just like, this is phenomenal. Like, I literally could use every, like, large adjective in my vocabulary and not be able to describe the night sky and how I feel about it, too. And so, and, like, I was able to do the same thing in Jordan, where there's not a lot of light pollution, and I just, like, sat and watched it, and, like, I watched a lunar eclipse in Jordan, in fact. Sometimes I forget that, because I, like, slept through part of it. And, you know, I've looked at the night sky in the Sierra Nevadas, where there's, like, no light pollution, and I don't really understand it, and so it's mysterious, and it's just sort of, like, mystical to me, and, like, I don't want to sound, like, hippy-dippy over here, but, like, there's a lot of mystery about it for me, and I kind of appreciate that there's mystery about it, and that I don't really understand it, because it just makes it more beautiful to me, that it's, like, this phenomenal thing that I'm exposed to every day, but I don't really understand, and I'm okay with not understanding it, except when it makes me feel kind of ignorant, like when we actually talk about space, and I'm like, wait, there's salt water on Europa? Wait, where's Europa? Okay, so for the record, I now know that Europa is a moon of Jupiter. Please, God, may I get this correct. It's a moon of Jupiter, and yes, there is seawater there. Although, there's some sort of, like, potential exploration to Europa that I tuned out for. Because I was just like, I'm done with this conversation, I don't care, I feel dumb. I really hate feeling dumb, because I actually feel like I'm a reasonably smart person, and so I don't like feeling dumb. Which maybe is ironic that I then tune out conversations like this where I could actually learn something, but I think it's because I actually don't care about space exploration that I tune out. So we can talk about that. I'm trying to shorten this up so you don't have to listen to 12 minutes of me dithering, which is what the last video was. So if I'm talking fast, I'm sorry, and if I cut out some things, that's okay. So space exploration, I'm not a huge fan. I talked a lot about how I thought that NASA should not have been defunded in my last video, and I suppose that's kind of hypocritical considering that I don't agree with space exploration, but on principle, I don't agree with defunding scientific programs, because we should be learning even if I don't agree with it. And I think that the reason that I don't agree with space exploration, or, I mean, I don't really find it that interesting anyway, I don't find it particularly compelling. I'm actually very satisfied to explore things on my own planet, but I understand that other people don't feel that way, so, but I don't agree with it because I think that it's basically another colonialist project. It's more imperialism, and You know, when something's born out of the Cold War and an era that is supposedly decolonizing, but is actually just neo-imperialism, which really, that is what the Cold War is, which we can talk more about that. I would love to talk to anybody about the Cold War because I have really great opinions about it, like the fact that it's stupid. I love to simplify things. So I think that when a project is born out of, you know, the Cold War and an era of neo-imperialism, like, it's almost inherently going to carry those traits. And I think that space exploration absolutely does. Like, it's basically, like, let's go and explore planets and, like, find sentient life. But I'm like, here's the thing. If there's sentient life, they're hiding from us, guys. Like, they're like, run away from these, like, crazy people who are dumb. I generally don't have a very good opinion of humanity, for the record. So, I mean, okay, maybe there's sentient life on Europa, but seriously, they're hiding. They're hiding. They don't want to be found because they're like, especially not by us. Secretly, there could be like this intergalactic space alliance that we've been left out of because we're so stupid. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with space exploration from the standpoint that it is imperialist, and from the standpoint that if we find sentient life, even if they're smarter than us, we're still going to automatically assume that they're stupider than we are, and therefore we're probably going to end up in another colonial project. And I frankly think that we've done enough of that, and it's pretty unilaterally turned out terribly, and so I don't agree in engaging in more of that. And I think that, you know, exploration of new places is great, but it's always going to be followed by a rhetoric. It's always inclusive of a rhetoric of colonialism and imperialism, and I don't personally see a way to get around that. And since I was asked to create a new metaphor for Ebola during my senior orals, if I can't create a new metaphor about that, and that's like one of the things I know the most about right now, I absolutely can't find a new metaphor for you about exploration. Like, it's going to be tied up in imperialism, and so I just fundamentally don't agree with that. Even if there's no sentient life yet that we're oppressing, the project itself, in intent, is still imperialist. So, I don't agree with space exploration. Which is probably why I haven't actually educated myself about space exploration, because I'm just like, if I don't agree with it, which, again, this is so ignorant, but whatever. If I don't agree with it, I don't really want to know any more about it. And, like, honestly, and I talked about this in my last video, I'm like, I'm not going to spend time learning about something on the internet. Like, I actually don't understand space. We've established this, but I'm not going to spend time learning about it if I don't care about it, or if I don't agree with it. Like, sorry. Although I will actually do that with some other things, but not space. And so then I would just love to briefly chat about science fiction, because I feel like it sort of ties into this, and because I like reading science fiction, which might kind of surprise you considering my ambivalence or disinterest in space. I really like science fiction. I've always liked fantasy more. It's something that I've read longer. Like, my mom was reading Redwall to me when I was, like, 5. And then we read The Hobbit when I was, like, 7. So, fantasy has always sort of been, like, my first true love. But I like science fiction. Like, I can think of 3 books off the top of my head that were all science fiction that I really love. And, like, I love Left Hand of Darkness. I love The Sparrow. I thought Ender's Game was super interesting, although very disturbing. But ultimately, those books for me are interesting because of their story, not because they happen in space. And, like, they have to happen in space. Like, the plot is dependent upon them happening in space. But the space aspect, I don't care about. I don't care about it at all. I don't find it compelling. I don't find it interesting. I don't care. Like, again, finding sentient life somewhere else does not give me warm fuzzies inside. In fact, it gives me, like, this cold clench of dread. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel about science fiction. Like, I really love it. I love reading it, but I love it for the characters and for their experiences, but not for science, not for space. So, I really only cut this video down by 3 minutes. That's embarrassing because I just did it again. But, yeah, if you're watching 9 minutes of this, go you. You're impressive. This was a video about my lack of interest in space. The end.